What's up, you guys? I hope you're doing great and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another troubleshooting video with Mr. Fix-It. So we got a Cub Cadet with a steering wheel, and the issue right now is it's not getting any power, so it's not cranking, it's not clicking, it's not doing anything. And I'm going to show you what you need to dive in and start diagnosing the problem, and we get to the root of it, and hopefully we get this machine fixed and back in the yard where it belongs and cutting some grass. Before we get into the video, don't forget to smash the like, drop a comment down below, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thanks. Okay, so what we're going to be using is a voltmeter and a trusty old test light. So we're going to be testing for power to these switches. But yeah, before we go into all that, first we're gonna jump on and see what exactly is happening. So we have the park brake is on this guy. Make sure your PTO switch is down and you're sitting on the seat, and then we turn on the ignition and see what is happening. And the issue is there's nothing happening. We have no power even coming to the meter. There's no clicking, no nothing. So that brings me to the next step. We're gonna start checking the fuses. There's usually two main fuses, one for the PTO, one for the ignition switch. So let me turn this bad boy around. I'll show you where the fuses are, and we'll grab our test light. Alright guys, so first I'm gonna test the battery, even though the customer already replaced it, but that don't really mean anything because it could be defective battery, it could be a short somewhere, the battery could have gotten drained by the time he decided to get it up to me to get it fixed. So that's why I like to check, and as you can probably see, we have 12.7 volts, so the battery is good. That's confirmed. And now we can go ahead and go on to checking the actual main fuse, which I already can see it. It's down here on the main harness. So it looks like it's a 25 amp. And turn ignition on. We have the park brake on, and we have power. Okay, so we are getting power to the main fuse. So in other words, we should have power from the ignition going to the rest of the electronics down the line. So let's go ahead and this one actually doesn't have the regular starter with the solenoid. It actually has the automotive type starter with the solenoid built onto it. So we're gonna go ahead and check that and see if there is actually power coming from the ignition. So I'm just gonna pull the wire, and I'll get you a close-up in a second. But there is a separate wire, this one right here, that plugs into the solenoid onto the actual starter. So this is the signal wire. When you turn the ignition to the start position, you should be getting power to this guy right here. So let me do that real quick, and we have nothing. Okay, so that tells me we're losing the power somewhere between the ignition switch and the starter, and that leaves a lot of stuff in between, which is basically all the safety switches, the PTO switch. So yeah, looks like it's not going to be an easy fix. We're going to have to dive deeper into this one. Let me connect this guy back and give you a close-up of what I'm talking about for the people that don't understand what the difference is between having the solenoids or having the automotive type starter on this machine. Alright, real quickly, I had some spare parts around the shop, so I decided to show you. A lot of times your mowers will have this guy, which is your starter motor, but will not have this solenoid on the side. So you just see this cylinder right here. It will be this starter, and then somewhere on the frame you'll see one of these guys with a one side going to the positive on your battery, and then the other side you have another wire going to the starter. Like usually on the bottom of this guy you'll have another red wire coming from the solenoid. So to test these out, really, if you're wondering if these are bad, if you hear clicking and nothing's happening, the fastest way you can test them is grab a screwdriver and just touch both poles on the top of it. Yeah, there's going to be some sparks flying, but as long as you do that and the engine starts cranking over, then 99% chances that your solenoid is bad. With these, however, the signal from the starter from the ignition switch comes here on a single wire. So there is another, usually the power wire from the battery will connect right here, and then you have the little single wire that comes from the ignition switch connected to the solenoid. So here's the starter on this guy. So I just unplugged that wire down there, which is the blue wire. You probably can't see on the video, but I thought I'd show you real quick what the difference is between the two starters. So now that we know we don't have the power going to the starter, we're going to start backwards and probably pull the ignition switch panel off and start tracing the wires from there. And lucky for me is these Cub Cadets, I don't know if it's all of them, but at least this one has these little clips holding the panel, which you just pull the center. I can pull it out with my nails, but usually you need a little clip remover, and you just lift up on the panel and then slide it out. So now you have access to the wiring. All right, well, let me put the phone on the stand and we can start testing some of these wires, or I'm just going to pull the whole ignition switch out and we go that way. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be easier if I just pull out the ignition switch. So in order to do that, you just unplug the plug on the bottom, and then there's two prongs you have to squeeze together and push it out. So now with the ignition switch off, what I'm going to do is actually check my connections, and usually this, where's that wire? Usually there is your continuous power wire that you get the power from the battery. Okay, this guy. So it's the single wire, and this plug, it's a single wire, red and white. That should be getting continuous power, and we're not getting anything. And why you should be getting continuous power is, I'm going to show you. Grab this. So you see right here on the positive terminal, we have the thick red wire, and you have this skinny red wire also connected, and that goes to your main fuse. And then from the fuse on the other side, we get the red, wet, white, which is supposed to be coming up directly into the ignition switch. I will have to double check and confirm if that's the case on this Cub Cadet, as I have not worked on one with the steering wheel before, and I haven't worked on that many Cub Cadets in general, so I need to trace it down. But usually that wire goes directly to the ignition switch. So if we're not getting power there, then we're losing the power somewhere between the main fuse and the ignition switch. And I've already confirmed that we do have power. This is the on the side coming from the battery, and here is the other side of the, this is on the other side where the wire, the red and white wire that goes up to the ignition. So we do have power. Okay, well, now we're gonna have to pull the harness and trace it and see where exactly we're losing the power and what is going on, or if this wire is going to something else before it actually hits the ignition switch. So give me a few minutes to go and do that real quick. So I had to remove the battery in order to get access to the wire harness, and let me show you. That's kind of a tight spot. So this is where the battery usually resides. This is the main fuse. There is the wire we're going to be tracing, the main power wire, the red with the white stripe, and here you can see where it goes. This is the relay. If you've seen one of my other Cub Cadet videos where you have the PTO switch shutting off, there is the relay. Here's where it's located on these Z mowers, under this seat for the, under the panel that's under the seat. So that's real convenient. But yeah, here's the wire harness and where it goes, and it basically comes up in here through the frame. So we're going to be tracing the wire from here to the ignition switch and find out where exactly we're losing this power, because it doesn't seem like the wire is going into anything else. And there's another safety switch plug down here, which I have no clue why it's just hanging in here. I don't know if this was ever plugged into anything, or maybe they're using the same wiring harness and this is for another model where they have another safety switch somewhere here. I do not know, but this is what I found. These two plugs were hanging behind the battery. So let's go ahead and check the wire and start tracing so we can hopefully get this thing on the grass today. So it didn't take me long. Like I said, we started from the fuse and I've been testing every few inches down the line and see if we get power. And yeah, we have power there, and see if we have power here. We do have power here. And then see what I'm seeing? When I pulled the battery, I noticed that this clip was just hanging, so I wasn't in place, and it's supposed to be connected somewhere on the frame to hold the wiring loom from slapping around. Well, this is the result, guys. This is why we were getting a ground reading on the ignition switch. So wiring harness was loose, and you can see it already started eating up the next wire. So wire is cut right there, and it was touching inside the frame over here, grounding out. And this was the issue with our Cub Cadet. So we finally found what the problem was. Well, let me go ahead, splice this wire, get it replaced, and we can hear this bad boy running again. Real quickly, I just pulled the whole wiring harness from the ignition switch panel through the frame so I can get better access. And yeah, here is your wiring harness, and here is where the wire got split from rubbing up against the frame. If it decides to focus, yep, right there. And you can see it started eating through the insulation on the second wire. So yeah, we're gonna splice this, solder it back together, and we're gonna put probably some of this shielding on these wires, wrap them up in some electrical tape and have them better protected, and find out where this clip actually goes so we can clip it back to the frame, so it prevents the wire harness from moving around and having the same issue again. So let me get this thing done and I'll show you what the final product looks like, and hear this thing running. Okay, so we got the wires soldered back together. We got our little heat shrink wrap we're gonna pull over, and then like I said, I'm gonna put some extra plastic sheeting like this going hopefully all the way down, and get everything insulated so we won't run into this issue again. But while we have it connected, let me test the actual ignition switch plug and make sure we do get power to it. So where is this guy? Here's the red with the white, and we have power, ladies and gentlemen. So basically we should be good to go once we put everything back together. So let me finish all this, get it all tidied up, and we get this thing started. A quick look before I reroute the wiring harness. So I extended the sheeting, basically got the heat shrink wrap on the soldered wire, then I put a bunch of electric tape and then extended the sheeting that I picked up from another scrap harness that I have, and then put another piece going all the way to the relay for the PTO. So now all the way basically where it's got to go behind the frame and through the frame is all now insulated and sheeted, so we shouldn't have any more problems. Okay, so everything is back together, and here's the moment of truth. Let's see. Oh, we got a click. We got our meter on, showing voltage. There's our hours, and let's give it a crank. She is alive, ladies and gentlemen. She is alive. Back up and running. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. As always, stay safe, be blessed, come back for more videos. Mr. Fix It, out to cut the grass.